Most people, if they've had kids or want kids, all have a perception of having educated, caring, and independent children, or the perfect kid. Nobody wants a child who hasn't been fully educated, doesn't care about the well-being of others, and is so dependent on the people around them that they can't make decisions on their own. Thomas Blass, a social psychologist from the University of Maryland, Baltimore County, and Holocaust survivor, further elaborates on the Milgram study in his 1991 peer-reviewed journal, Understanding Behavior in the Milgram's Obedience Experiment, the role of personality, situations, and their interactions. Blass elaborates that personality obedience links were mixed and that some supported a link and others did not, as well as that situational factors are stronger predictors of obedience. Personality traits aren't linked to whether someone will be obedient, but situational factors are big contributors to obedience. So basically this shows that situational factors are big indicators of whether someone will be obedient, but if we can educate and parent children correctly, children can be set up to make those decisions in those situations. The United States should require students to be taught an ethics or morality class as part of their main curriculum in middle school and high school, in combination with parents teaching morality. Children and young adults' morals are not getting better as new generations come into the world, ultimately putting the world at a risk for another Holocaust-level crisis. Marcus Cheatham, a neuropsychologist from the University of Zurich, created a study in 2009 with 60 participants over a couple of months that measures brain activity by detecting changes associated with brain flow when they do a VR simulation of the Milgram study. In the article, Virtual Milgram, Empathetic Concern, or Personal Distress, Evidence from Functional MRI and Dispositional Measures, it revealed activation in certain brain areas, but not those that affect sharing. The results overall showed that perception in the virtual world of bodily and facial pain evoked no neural activity in parts of the brain that showed empathy. So basically, new generations don't show empathy for bodily/facial pain when they do a VR simulation, and it shows that new generations actually lack empathy in these types of situations. Obedience against society's norms are still prominent and still going on. Jean Twenge, a professor of psychology at San Diego State University and author of over 140 scientific publications and books, explained in the 2009 article, Change Over Time in Obedience, the jury's still out, but it might be decreasing. Situations have a strong influence on behavior, and so why wouldn't that change as generations shift? The generational shift she highlights is that earlier parents focused more on obedience, and now parents find it more important to raise someone who is independent and tolerant. Twenge emphasized that in the Berger study, it showed that obedience had decreased compared to the Milgram study, but even the huge cultural shift didn't completely change the norm of obedience. Overall, obedience, even if it's against society's moral code, is still prominent, but it's slowly decreasing. So this shows that generations are only slightly getting better, but slightly doesn't mean that if something catastrophic happens, it doesn't mean that we wouldn't follow the same path into blind following. Stalin Murr, a behavioral psychologist, decided to create a study in 2012 with 50 participants that explains whether oxytocin changes the amount someone will conform. In the article, The Herding Hormone, Oxytocin Motivates In-Group Conformity, examined if conformity towards one's group is altered by oxytocin. They administered oxytocin or a placebo. Participants were separated and asked to provide attractiveness of unfamiliar visual stimuli and see if they conform to in-group and out-group. Results show that people given oxytocin conform to the in-group, but not their out-group. Participants with the placebo reacted differently and didn't demonstrate conformity to either in-group or out-group. Even though newer generations protest things they don't like, it doesn't mean that they wouldn't go along with their friends or authoritative figures in doing something morally wrong. Stalin Murr proves this when he says that you are more likely to follow along with your in-group or people that you're emotionally connected with or have relationships with. When not being taught the basics of ethics from parents and teachers, children lack a fundamental understanding of morals. what their morals are, and that morals are actually subjective. Pushing parents to teach morality more and allowing ethics to be taught before college as a way to introduce morals would ultimately prevent blind following peers and authoritative figures into doing something that is not morally permissible. Teaching ethics has actually shown to provide children essential morals that are needed in everyday life. Betty Latham is a professor of sociology, anthropology at Indiana University in Pennsylvania. In 1979, she wrote a journal article comparing the teaching of ethics in Japan and lack of teaching of ethics in the United States. Latham states that in Japan, Dotoku, it teaches good or proper behavior. It is closely related to our ethics classes, which college institutions to our ethics classes within college institutions, but presented at a younger age. The most important lesson of Dotoku is that it teaches opposition to a group when something is not morally permissible. This juxtaposes the United States because the U.S. has no ethics or moral teachings going on for younger ages, which is when people are the most malleable and able to learn. In Japan, Dotoku ethics, it teaches opposition to a group when something is not morally permissible. And the reason why they do this at a younger age is because children are more malleable and able to learn, which is why people try to teach their children another language at a younger age. It's easier and quicker for them to pick up. Today's parenting should make morals and teaching children overall a bigger priority than what it is. Martin L. Hoffman is an American psychologist and a professor of clinical and developmental psychology, wrote about moral development within children in 2001. He explained that parenting children receive highly affect whether a child will be empathetic towards situations that usually evoke empathy, guilt, and moral internalization. Overall, the parenting styles are important. Authoritative parents seem to have children who are morally empathetic to others, whether they're feeling of guilt over hurting someone, anger at others who do harm. Parents affect your morality, ethics, behavior, and empathy. Parenting styles are authoritarian, authoritative, permissive, and neglectful. These parenting styles influence whether children feel empathetic, feel guilt, or morally internalize. You want to be an authoritative parenting. That's the best parenting style. Parents should also continue to teach independence. This is mostly why there's a slight decrease in blind following from the Milgram study to now. As well, parents affect your morality, ethics, behavior, and empathy more than people actually realize. So some people think that some kids don't have parents with morals and other kids don't go or care about school, which is why the solution wouldn't help. But this solution is actually supposed to resemble a checks and balance so that kids will receive ethics or morality in some way. So kids who don't have parents who have strong morals will receive ethics through their education, and children who don't really care about school or don't enjoy this ethics class will receive morals and ethics through their parents or through their peers and students who are learning this during the same time. Overall, this creates more of a checks and balances, like I said, that would help either kid get the education that they need. Overall, by teaching kids an ethics and morality class accompanied with correct parenting styles that are targeting teaching empathy and morality, children can hopefully avoid catastrophes and succumbing to blind obedience in situations that are similar to the Holocaust or in everyday life. Children will be educated, caring for others, and more independent, closer to what society needs and parents want their children to be.